Hi.
I guess the one was they have it. Yeah, they have just virtually.
And then some other kids that I also want to be.
A lot of people have.
I didn't realize.
On your nail.
Oh, yeah.
You want to get up with the
No, it's cold.
Really?
Yeah,
I don't need everything.
I'm jealous. It's a plus, which I might get one.
My dad and I are like everything. You'll get up from the. Cleaning them all up for us.
So I changed.
Only practice that you are on. We're not around.
All right, with left hand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Remain standing. Keep all of our men and women in uniform, our first responders, our military, our fire and our police. Please keep them in your presence and in your thoughts and help them get home safe every night. Thank you. First order of business is recognition, presentation of commendations to Sergeant William Military.
Somebody in this party is looking to get back into it. So we're gonna do that for having but get lost in the minutia of their daily lives. And unless you see the 6 o'clock news, you probably don't know about the work that your police officers are doing. Your press release that the lieutenant puts out, you may make it to the Wesley Sun, our personnel. They do the job with dignity. They do it because they care and they do a great job. A lot of it is kind of under the radar and doesn't get noticed. It's important to recognize this type of work, that these 2 officers are being recognized because it truly impacts the public safety in Richmond. You know, when I was with the state police, I remember Kilo was coming up the highway. They were leaving Point South, heading to New York and Boston. And we always had a question, is it actually destined for Rhode Island? When you're patrolling these local roads, we've been dealing with overdoses for the last several years, since 2014. Sometimes it's accidental, sometimes it's a person who is using drugs and they didn't realize it was fentanyl in it. But we have been dealing with, these guys have the real impact of drug addiction. And there's a lot of reasons people get hooked on drugs. Some of them got prescriptions that led them to become addicted to a substance they couldn't get legally, so now they turn the street. Sergeant William Laterio, veteran police officers, made a lot of great arrests. Dan Ballou has been with us now for 4 years, 5, and does a great job. This particular arrest occurred in June last year, and it happened And about, should just read it right off of commendation. So you have the exact facts. On June 13th, 2022, at approximately 8:04 p.m. Sergeant William Lateria was on routine patrol of a local housing development when he observed a black Ford pickup truck pass by his cruiser, park in front of one of the residential apartments and make hasty entrance. The person hurriedly walked into the apartment. Short time later, Sergeant Lateria seized the vehicle. He knew that the registration on the vehicle was expired, so he had probable cause to legal sufficient to stop the vehicle. He did, and the operator of the car had a wad of $100 bills on their lap. Not a common thing. Most of us don't have that in our pocket, never mind on our lap. He was nervous during the interaction with the sergeant. He called Patrolman Dan Ballou for backup. The two of them conducted a scene investigation that led to the seizure of $2,048 in cash, 13 glassine baggies totaling 39 grams of cocaine, and 10 glassine baggies totaling 20 grams of cocaine. Could you put that image up, please? For a total seizure of over 2 ounces of cocaine. They had information that this person was dealing in our area, dealing in that same housing development where we responded to overdoses. So I cannot say it enough. Astute observation and diligent police work led to a really significant arrest in our community. The $2,000, 70% of that came back to us in way of a forfeiture that the lieutenant applied for. And it goes back to the department spending to offset our budget. So recognition of Sergeant William Lateria tonight. Thank you for what you do for the town. Family up.
Sure. Come on, guys. Hurry up.
This is Dad. This is big. Thank you for supporting him. We don't get anything done without our family supporting back to your pool.
I took my outfit.
Thank you. Very
Thank
much.
you.
Now, when Dan first got hired 5 years ago, I told him he didn't have to speak at council. And I made him speak. I'm not gonna do it tonight. If you want to take a picture with your family.
Come on, fam.
Thank you, guys. One thing to Lieutenant too is he's probably on 16 or 17 hours right now working, but he's here.
Do we get one?
Pay respect to, absolutely. Yeah, let's get one more. We do that?
Before we go on the road.
Four of the four of us.
I just want a visual.
Sorry. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
See,
you.
that's good work. Good job, guys.
Hi.
There's room up front now, guys. Bye. Very nice seeing you. Nice meeting you.
Chief, you know what people don't think about too? Saving and taking that all off the road, they could have saved a life that night from an OD,
Absolutely.
or they could have saved life, they could have hit somebody after they took the drugs and whatnot, so there's a lot more to that than just taking.
Absolutely. So the problem is, it's one thing to use it, it's another thing to profit off the pain and suffering of other people. That's what this individual was accused of doing. Charges are still pending, he's been indicted, but it's great, just great piece of police work.
Public hearing,
Mr. President,
yes.
motion to open public hearing for the application of Flippo's Twisted Pizza and Bistro Richmond for Class B
Second.
victualler.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Could we have the microphones on? Can't hear back.
Oh, are they not on?
They're on. I'll just yell a little louder.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Public hearing is open for the alcohol beverage license for Filippo's Twisted Pizza. Anybody here for that? Anyone here representing it? Anybody in virtual world? Nope.
All right, Mr. President, motion,
Hearing.
Mr. President.
Yeah.
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
We need to ask if there's anyone who would like to speak on,
He just did that.
not the applicant, but anyone else.
Anybody else like to speak on it?
Yeah, I also, I'm John Gill.
And
I
person?
reside in Wyoming.
Okay.
22 years in the Navy, former Richmond police officer as well.
For your service, sir.
Thank you for your service.
I don't want to hear for it, don't want the gratitude rating. But I understand they're also want to have live entertainment,
Indoor
Indoor.
entertainment.
indoor entertainment. Where's all the parking going to be? Anybody thought about, the place isn't that big. In addition to that, the reason I'm here originally is for noise pollution. From Richmond smoke originally, but that's a separate up. But I thought this was gonna be a pizza parlor. Sounds more like they're wanting to turn it into a bar.
The entertainment license is further down on the agenda. This is just a liquor license.
Oh,
If you want to speak at that point, we'll
I'll come back.
happy to hear you. All right, you're no problem. Did anybody else like to speak on the liquor license?
that's all right, I'll sit up here.
All right,
All
we're
right.
done. Mr. President, motion to close public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Uh,
Move to approve.
You make it subject to everything.
Yes. Mhm.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 The
Mr. President.
Yep.
Consent agenda, I want to pull the third, just because I have a statement / question about it. So I'll start with a motion to approve items 1 and 2, A, B, C, and D.
Mr. President, actually goes right back to the approval of what we're approving. It says May 16th, it should be June 6th.
Is there a lag in?
No, that's May 16th.
No, it was no. Because we approved the 16th at the last council meeting.
Just pull that item and start over.
Full consent agenda item 1, approval of minutes from May 16th.
So then a motion to approve item 2, A, B, C, and D.
Anybody have anything to pull from that? All in favor?
Aye.
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 2, A, B, C, and D.
Aye.
Thank you. I think we want to pull something from Rick.
Right, so I just had a question, because I've been looking at the approvals for the payment of bills. And I've noticed we haven't received a bill from the attorney we hired in the school committee case, Mr. Larissa, Attorney Larissa. The work was done in April, because that was when the hearing was, and I just want to know if I could ask
Yeah.
the finance department if they've received anything, any estimate on how much that's gonna cost, or anything from him.
I do not have an invoice from him.
Have we received any kind of estimate?
I have not.
I have, Laura asked me just for the purposes of, because the fiscal year is ending, so I did call him and he did give me an estimate. But we have not received it.
Yeah, what the estimate was.
25,000? All right, thank you. With that said, motion to approve item F3.
Anybody have any discussion on that? Anything you talk about? Have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Public forum. Public forum will be around 2 minutes. Keep it short, keep it sweet, please. And I will time it.
I'm Joyce Flanagan. I live in Richmond. And I'd like to say a few words about property taxes here in Richmond. I'm sure you know that most of Rhode Island's 39 cities and towns offer tax relief of some kind to eligible residents. For example, in Richmond, homeowners eligible for property tax relief if their income is below a certain amount have consideration on their property taxes. But do you know that in 28 municipalities out of the 39, additional tax relief is offered to people who are 65 years of age, regardless of their income? So I'd like to name some of those municipalities that offer flat exemptions to tax credit to the people over 65. The amounts vary and the residency requirements vary, but the towns and cities win when their senior citizens are incentivized to stay in their homes. Barrington, Bristol, Burrillville, Central Falls, Coventry, Cranston, Cumberland, East Greenwich, East Providence, Exeter, Forster, Gloucester, Johnston, Lincoln, Middletown, Narragansett, North Kingstown, North Providence, Portsmouth, Providence, Situate, Smithfield, Warren, Warwick, West Greenwich, West Warwick. Wouldn't this be a better place to start when handing out tax relief? I suggest that before Richmond considers property tax relief to the residents of the preserve, who, in Mr. Mahalidi's words, are owners of third and fourth vacation homes, we might want to consider tax relief programs that encourage seniors to stay in their only homes, not their third and fourth homes. Or do you really think that supporting legislation that benefits only the residents of the preserve is the way to go? That's my question for the town council.
Thank you. Yes.
Hey again. John Gill, I live in Wyoming. Hear about noise pollution. In general, the whole place is getting rather noisy. State came in and redeveloped the exchange here off 95, which you should relabel it to Richmond International Raceway. The noises, everybody's driving motorcycles that have little or no exhaust, cars that have little or no exhaust. Trucks coming off the highway using their Jake brake, 4 o'clock in the morning, that's real nice to wake up to. But in general, or specifically, Richmond smoke, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's getting rather obnoxious, to say the least, the noise coming from there. I imagine I'm not the only one you got complaints from. Probably a whole lot. But I've done it, I've spewed to the dispatcher more than once. I'm sorry for that.
No, that's okay. What
What
address do you live at, sir?
I live at 21 Canal Lane,
Yep, I've seen it.
more than once. I got you on speed dial.
Perfect.
But it seems the police's hands are tied because they have a permit that they can make all the noise they want. I live a quarter mile, more than a quarter mile from there, and you can't sit outside anymore. It's getting ridiculous. And in addition to the noise, one other thing, the intersection of Spring Green Drive and Canal Lane, stop sign there, you might as well take it down because nobody pays any attention to it. I've gotten hit almost a dozen times, coming both directions. People usually don't even slow down there. And it's, especially on the weekends, it gets pretty well traveled. But that's about all I have to say.
Thank you.
Send me to. Thank you.
Very welcome. Anybody else?
Hello.
Hello.
I've been here before. I think you all know who I am. I'm Megan Connor. I'm here to discuss the piece of legislation that the town council endorsed on behalf of the town, and why I have a bill sent back to committee so that there's no confusion. I also want to be clear that my name was on that piece of legislation, no one else. I know there were some rumors that other people were involved. I was the decision maker. I was the person who sponsored the bill, and I had it sent back to committee. After many conversations and many emails with town residents, I was not satisfied with the text of the bill. No one from the town or the preserve came to testify when the bill was in committee. There was no direction from the town at all about this. I spoke to President Trimmer about my concerns, and again, I really wasn't super satisfied with his responses. The legislation as it is currently written is not a good deal for the taxpayers of Richmond. As I read this, there are no safeguards put in place to ensure that there is new construction in return for a potential total tax exemption. As the bill reads, the entity can invest $10 million in existing property, potential kitchen upgrade. And then the town can then give them a total tax exemption. And you can see that in the bill on page 2, line 5. Before enacting such a resolution, the town council shall find that approving the exemption or stabilization will benefit the town because of the agreement of the property owner to invest an additional $10 million in the property during the period for which taxes have been partially exempted or stabilized by constructing new buildings or replacing, converting, expanding, or remodeling existing buildings. And then on page 2, line 10, during the period for which taxes have been partially exempt or stabilized, the property shall not be further liable to taxation by the town. So essentially, an entity can invest $10 million in kitchen upgrades and then not pay taxes for 20 years. When there are seniors that were hoping to get a bump in the stabilization of their taxes, the town can't do that this year. And the preserve is the only entity in Richmond that fits the requirements in the bill. And if it's the true intent of the council to create legislation to incentivize the preserve to build new construction, which I support, then this bill has failed to do so. The legislation has loopholes that will allow the town to give away the farm without anything in return. And I really, truly, this bill is not in the best interest of the forgotten taxpayers. Ask yourselves, how does Richmond benefit in any way from this legislation? It was rushed, and it's unclear if the council, if you folks even had time to read it before it was sent to the State House. And the preserve picked it up and brought it to the State House. By the time I went to my desk, there was a copy of the legislation already drafted by legal counsel at the State House. That's not how legislation is sent to the State House. It's sent from the town to the state rep and the state senator. You don't cut corners or cut out people. I like to read legislation before I submit it so that I can ask questions. 30 years ago, backdoor deals were easy to get away with. A call to the speaker's office, a handshake, boom, it was done. But that's not how we operate today. That's not how we go about it. I came before this council in March. I had my card, I had my email address, any way to get in touch with me. And I wanted to make sure that we could work together to get meaningful legislation passed. This was submitted without a phone call or anything. I would like to work on this for January. We have time to make meaningful legislation that can impact more than just one entity in the town and benefit the town itself. But doing it and rushing it with less than a week of session left, it's not the way we do things. It's not beneficial. My goal as your representative is to work for the best interest of the people who live here. The people of Richmond want to be represented by folks who do the right thing, who are informed and read between the lines. But I think we can do that together. We just have to be willing to work together. And rushed legislation is not the way. So I look forward to working with you in the future to make this work for everyone in the town. But senior citizens are hurting. I had 2 people call me and say that they were denied the tax stabilization because they were a day late or 2 days late. How do we look those folks in the eye and tell them that there's going to be tax breaks for people who don't necessarily need the tax breaks? I want to work with you to get this done, but we need to do it right. And I just want to thank all the people who emailed me, who called me, who wanted to discuss this. Your voices are important and they matter. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Pete Burton and I live in Richmond, and I'll make this briefer than I was going to because Megan Cotter covered a lot of what I was going to say very well. So, you know, the council knows that they could ask for this sort of tax exemption. They could also ask state legislature to let Richmond give a homestead exemption that would cover pretty much everybody who's a owner occupier of their house. These things are important, and I guess I would say one thing, either way, I think that any tax abatements or residential real estate issues should go through a referendum instead of a vote on the town council. And with my remaining minute and a half, I'd like to ask each one of you whether you agree or disagree.
I'd support a referendum.
Mr. Colsante?
What is the referendum?
I suggested that any potential future tax abatements for residential real estate be decided by the residents of Richmond through a referendum instead of a vote on the town council. Do you agree or disagree?
No, I don't.
You disagree.
I disagree.
I don't agree either.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
But I'd like to also comment during public comment.
Okay, public is gonna speak.
Kristen Chambers from Richmond. This is also just a footnote to Representative Cotter's well-spoken words. I call it the RTC with the exception of Councillor Wilcox. Bingo blues. It was a council had a beef with bingo. It's a game, so they promised taxpayers relief, but it was a shell game. Dough. This budget's bad. Vote no, you saps. Indeed, that was their claim-o. The town's been had. Tax breaks were planned for billionaires with name-o. Next time you think a harmless game is something you can blame-o for your tax woes and all your ills, hear what I proclaim-o. Recall the gang behind the shill and vote them out in shame-o. Thank you.
My name is Julie Lizio, live in Richmond. I admit I've missed a couple of council meetings, so I wasn't quite up to date until a week or so ago when I saw it in print about this suggestion. And I think it is very bad for the town of Richmond, very bad for the individuals in Richmond. And I hope it will be thought of very, very much before it is proceeded with and or passed. Thank you.
Good evening, councilors. I'm Louise Dinsmore from Richmond. I have a question and then followed by a statement. I would like to know who is authorized to post messages to the Richmond, Rhode Island Town Government page. Is there anyone here that can shed light on who is authorized to do that? Okay. So on Friday, June 2nd, there was a lengthy post about the municipal budget coming up for a vote on the Richmond, Rhode Island Town Government page. The end of the post said, quote, please support your town council and the staff by voting yes on Monday, unquote. And yes was in large letters. For any employee of the town of Richmond to encourage voters to vote one way or the other on the town budget, in my opinion, is a conflict of interest. You are being paid by the taxpayers. You have a vested financial interest in seeing the budget pass. And for you to advocate for a yes vote, in my opinion, is inappropriate. Financial conflicts of interest are situations that create perceived or actual tensions between personal financial gain and adherence to the fundamental value of objectivity. It's your right to advocate for a yes vote, in my opinion, on your own personal time, on your own personal Facebook page. But to use the Richmond Town Government Facebook page or website to do so is irresponsible. I would ask that the town council develop a policy
about the future content of town government social media posts. That they be apolitical and informational only, and should not include a position on an issue one way or the other when it impacts people's pocketbooks. Thank you. Karen, this is no disrespect to you, but it's just my opinion. I appreciate everything that you do for the town, but I thought that this advocating for a yes vote or even a no vote is just inappropriate for a town employee. Thank you.
Just quickly to respond to that, that
Yes.
was the town's presentation, that was what the town presented to the council. The council approved it and the council sent it to referendum. So from what I can see, the town per se, if that's the budget they wanted to present to the taxpayer.
And you have every right to your opinion, but the taxpayers are voting one way or the other. So to me, I would put it on par with the policy for the school committee. That the school committee and the school department sends out 6 or 7 correspondence, whether text message, emails, whatever it is, to advocate for people to show up at the polls. They don't say vote yes or vote no. So I think that we should take the lead from the school department, that if we can inform voters that something is coming up, it's going to impact people's pocketbooks one way or the other. And I don't feel it's appropriate for a position one way or the other to be advocated for or against.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anything else?
Good evening, Mark Reynolds, Richmond. One, just to follow up on Ms. Dinsmore's comment, I agree with Ms. Finch. The town council passed the budget. They were urging the voters to approve that budget, and the town on its Facebook page has every right to encourage voters to pass the budget that they feel is responsible. The difference with the school district is all that contact information is collected for educational purposes. So the school district has said, we're not going to collect your email addresses so we can communicate with you for educational purposes and then send you a political message. That's the difference. That's why they don't send out a position on the budget using that contact information, because it's collected for educational purposes. Not so with the town, particularly where the council was urging approval of the budget. I also want to address the preserve legislation and make a couple of other points. I wrote to Representative Carter and all the other representatives urging them to oppose that legislation for a lot of the reasons that Representative Carter said tonight. It was a single purpose bill to benefit one entity in town. It didn't protect the taxpayers, and the process was flawed. It was rushed, just like the old-fashioned backroom deal. And when you layer that on top of the fact that 2 members of this council, Councilor Colasanti and Councilor Trimmer, received donations from 3 individuals during their campaigns, 3 individuals connected to the preserve in the amount of $3,000 each. So you have to ask yourself, with that kind of process, trying to go around and cut corners, what's the real agenda here? So I think it looks bad. We've spent months talking about an economic development director or a consultant and discussed that ad nauseum. But here we have a significant initiative at the preserve, and we ram it through the council in one night, and then it's run up to the State House by the preserve. By the preserve, they're the ones that took it up there. It can be done correctly. It could be done for all residential developers. If the council decides as a matter of policy, you want to benefit and encourage residential development and offer tax incentives for that, then you need to offer it to everybody and set some parameters to protect the taxpayers. One other protection I would encourage you to include, particularly with respect to the preserve, is there's a provision that they have to be up to date on their taxes, but they also should be up to date on all the other fees that they owe the town. And it's my understanding that the preserve owes the town almost $200,000 in affordable housing waiver fees that they were granted. So they wouldn't have to build affordable housing in there. So I would encourage you to broaden that provision of any enabling legislation to not only include taxes, but to include any other fees that are owed to the town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Virtual room.
No hand raised.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to read a statement into the record. I'd like to recuse myself from the table here on the public forum.
Okay.
It's been done before. Mr. Parmigiano sitting here, he's done that.
You have stopped me from doing it, and I appreciate it when you did.
I will hold you to your 2 minutes.
Yep. Being this is my second term as town councilor, first time back in the early 90s. When I first sat on the council, we were the 19th highest property tax town in the state. And when I got off the council, we went to 21. Having now the second highest property taxes after 30 years of me being off the council. The state is adding that the financial burden many in our town are feeling right now. I hear from them all the time, and recently some came to a town council meeting to share their own personal stories. The last town budget was defeated, and this sent a loud message. To increase revenue, the majority of this council asked our senator and representative to submit a bill to help us expand our tax base and more business dollars. And I did call Representative Carter 2 times and I never received a phone call back. And Councilor Sheehan called Representative Carter and she never returned her call either. Presently, the preserve already brings in the most tax dollars to this town, and the owner, Paul Mahaley, spent a great amount of time carefully explaining to the town council his challenges and how the town could help and invest more into the town. The enabling legislation is just enabling legislation. Look it up, get the definition.
Keep your comments to the council, please.
Sure. Enabling legislation would have helped lower taxes on our residents by encouraging more investment by the preserve and could serve as an example to other big property owners in towns such as Capstone Properties, Richmond Commons, and the D'Amber Properties. It is well known that some in this town, including a few on important boards, simply do not want any more growth in town. And rather than be transparent about it, they simply put up obstacles and roadblocks to more commercial industrial growth. The majority in this town, such as myself, I believe, want growth. Part of the evidence is that every town councilor sitting on this council ran with a platform that included pushing economic growth.
1 more minute.
Sure, thank you. However, you need to watch actions, not just follow a person's words. I am disappointed by the inflammatory rhetoric, the mischaracterizations of the intent, and the baseless accusations that have been hurled regarding the legislation that was pulled. Business people realize good business is a win-win proposition for both sides, and that's where I stand and always will stand.
Thank you.
I also want to make a statement on the record. I won't take some minutes. Ellen Shan, Richmond. Last week, our state representative caused the defeat of a bill before the Rhode Island legislature that had the potential to reduce some of the tax burden that Richmond residents carry at present. Apparently, she thought that she really had to misunderstand the bill. The proposal that 4 of us on the town council supported was to allow us to negotiate a tax agreement with anyone who would agree to bring at least $10 million of new development into the town. And it included residential development. Current law allows us to enter into negotiation concerning commercial development, but that does not allow for residential development. And that is what we were aiming for. The bill would have worked for any company with enough money to put into town, but the main focus was the preserve. But we don't want any residential. We want a residential that wouldn't cost the town anything. We wouldn't have to worry about the schools or extra police services or anything. Do you know who pays the most taxes in Richmond? The Preserve, followed by Stop and Shop. Why would we not try to work with our biggest source of tax revenue, who has shown a commitment to Richmond? I don't know why our state representative would say that the residential development would be on the backs of regular homeowners. Nothing could be further from the truth. If we could bring an extra $100,000 a year of tax money into the town, or whatever, I don't even know, could be more than that. That the development would yield, that would be good for the Richmond taxpayers. I have not strayed from my commitment to taxpayers in Richmond. We need to bring more businesses into town if we are to have any hope of keeping the taxes at all manageable. So we lost a golden opportunity. And the idea is it was opportunity to discuss it. No one on the town council would ever go into any agreement wouldn't be for the benefit of the taxpayers. You can call it a you could call it a backdoor deal with nothing like that. We didn't even have negotiations because the bill didn't pass. So apparently I'm new on the council, so I didn't know there were rules about who has to carry things to the state house, but the goal is to save money with the taxpayers.
Thank you.
And how many of these?
I mean, chief. There's a lot of talk behind us, and it's rude.
Okay,
It's rude.
we're not gonna, we are going
to
to
hear what's going on. You hear breathing, I don't hear a lot of chatter. You hear
I
chatter?
hear chatter. I hear people being rude to two members of the council, but not rude to other members of the council, and it's not right.
I'll just
We
do a
don't hear
blanket one that I
here.
normally do, if I may, please.
sir.
We agree to disagree. Not everybody feels the same way. Everybody thinks the same. Respect one another, please. When somebody's up here, you don't need to comment, roll your eyes, I can't hear. When you're acknowledged to come up to the podium, it's very simple. Come up, say your name, speak your business, acknowledge the president when they, time's up. It's just that simple. Cannot make it any more plain. That goes for everybody in this room, including myself.
Thank you, sir.
And Mr.
Chair.
Point
President,
of order. Gotta get permission from the president. before you
I
speak.
said, Mr. President, you're jumping in on me.
Okay, we're not going there. We are not going there. Yes,
Thank you. When Councilor Sheehan was up there, Mr. Mahaley's did a very good presentation and he estimated the tax revenue over and above any tax abatements he would get would bring 1.4 million into the town.
we're not discussing. We are not going there because we're not gonna be violating any OMA. Jim,
I have Mr. Noble, sorry.
Oh, wait,
is there someone online?
Yeah.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Sir.
Sorry, thank you for letting me talk. After our tax assessment board of review, a lot of facts have come up about the preserve, and I wanted to present them because facts are important. Just so the town council knows, after our 47 different appeals from the preserve alone, no one else submitted any appeals. I've found some interesting facts. The average cost of a unit at the preserve is $2 million. The average home in Richmond costs $392 million approximately. The average tax bill at the preserve is $16,000. The average tax bill in Richmond is approximately $5,700. In their complaints, the preserve residential units thought that instead of being taxed closer to the sale price of $1,000 per square foot, that the $410 per square foot that the assessor assessed the units at was too much. They felt that the value of the units was closer to $220 per square foot. Because of where they would want to be, the town would look at losing per unit revenue, and the total would be about $150,000 if we went with the preserves valuation. Another thing that's come up in my work with the Tax Assessment Board of Review is that the state collects all sales data from deeded units and uses that average to distribute state educational funds. So what's happening with the preserve residential units is that they're overselling, it's skewing our average in the town. We're getting a reduction from the state in state funding, which we saw, as President Trimmer said in the last town council meeting, and we're also losing out on revenue that they could be giving to the town in the form of taxes. When asked to justify their reduced valuations, I needed to know what exact amenities and how many memberships per unit were given so that we could then come up with a correct valuation. No data was given, and it's difficult to work with somebody when we don't get any data at all about what's going on. And I think that the town as a government should get that kind of data. I understand how people think that maybe like if we encourage development that we would get more revenue, but on the other hand, if they're reducing it by almost 80% from sales price down to the assessed value, it's a huge tax break for these units. And I think these facts speak to how the town should proceed when it comes to a tax treaty. And I would be willing to work with anyone who'd like to come up with a scheme at which we encourage development, but we don't lose out on revenue. We are losing about $100,000 to $150,000 a year with the current evaluations and in comparison to what their sales price is. I appreciate the time. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Jim?
Thank you, Council. Jim Plummer, Richmond. Just read some notes on my phone. I hope you don't mind. First, I just want to thank Representative Cotter for offering the opportunity to work with this council collectively in the future to move forward to develop legislation that can both help us to drive business and revenue for the entire town and also make sure we do what's right regarding taxes. So I do hope that the council can take that and move forward together with it. The other two questions I had was if the council can advise who authorized the solicitor to partner with the preserve to craft this enabling legislation? That's one question. And the second was if the legislation was indeed not intended for the preserve, but it was intended to benefit any company who could do 10 million in investment, why was it hand delivered by the preserve to the State House?
Two awesome questions.
So that's my question. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Jim. Anything else? Online? No. Okay. Thank you. Reports. Aaron.
I know the council is aware, but for the audience's benefit, in case you weren't aware, the governor has an initiative called Learn 365. And basically the aim of that initiative is to give kids learning time outside of the typical 180-day school year. So that would be after school, summer, nights, weekends, whatever, wherever you give that opportunity to a student. So in conjunction with that, the state has provided a grant opportunity for the town to create a program, work with the school, potentially work with community-based organizations to try to facilitate this learning. This grant happens to be due June 30th. They didn't give us a lot of turnaround time at all. So what I'm coming to you with is not a specific proposal, but some general ideas for what we might be able to do. Kate, our Human Services Director, has been working with Superintendent Gina Picard and with the Y to try to formulate some programs that we could do to get this grant funding. And the grant funding is $50,000, or if you wanted to do an extended grant, I believe it's up to $400,000. I don't think we'll be applying for anything more than the 50,000 if we do. But some of their ideas were increase access for students for math and ELA tutoring by using URI students or online tutors or in-person tutoring. Another idea was a multi-generational approach for reading or writing with seniors. So I think it would be like a volunteer, I'm assuming, program with the seniors. Create space to schools for the school's chill program to support students who need additional guidance and support. And supporting the FAFSA, the Federal Student Aid Form completion for the high school by highlighting FAFSA timelines, creating promotional campaign workshops, etc., using the high school's guidance counselors. One other idea was after school STEAM to enrich math, ELA, and science support in a fun way for K-8 students, possibly an 8-week program for a group of 10 or more students throughout the school year run by the Y. So where I don't have a specific proposal for you, I'm looking for your authorization, given the timeline for us to put something together and submit for this grant.
Mr. President, we had discussed this initially, and you even weren't too hip about it, because, look, to get municipal government involved in education, that's what Charahoe is there for. And I mean, a dead set against this, because that's putting undue burdensome rules and regs that we have to follow with the town that we're not aware of. And I just really don't want to put the town in a precarious situation if we're not privy to a rule or a reg and we happen to do the wrong thing. Then, it's going to come back on the town here, whereas the school is already, accustomed to dealing with these rules and regs, what state laws have to say. And again, to put that burden on, our employees here in the town, I just think we should just defer this to the school and let them do it, because it could take our wellness director away from doing something more important. We're dealing with a issue that she should be dealing with in her job description, rather than trying to expand her job description, which even she isn't probably going to be qualified for. So I'm not hip on the grant.
Just to be clear, my concern was that if the school wouldn't be involved, I would absolutely want the school to be involved with any of this. Because I think that we don't have the capacity, we're not educators here, so. We've agreed to sign on, the council did agree to sign on, but I think it was with the caveat that you would learn more and decide whether you want to go a step further with the grant. So we had a date for this for signing, beneficial signing, and the governor's office had to cancel, so temporarily, I guess they're gonna have us sign it, because part of the stipulation of the grant is you have to have a signed compact, and then they'll do the formal.
Is Charlestown doing it?
I do not.
Is the school gonna be part of it? Do you know?
Well,
have they?
Kate has spoken to Gina, and she seems more amenable to it now than the impression that I first got.
Yep.
I do get the impression that there's some concern about the bandwidth of the teachers to do anything after hours. And you'll notice everything I read didn't really specify teachers. The only thing that I think she was fairly confident about was that the guidance counselors could assist with the FAFSA.
But they'd be able to learn from whomever, people who want to volunteer at the Y, get a different point of view at looking at something. Maybe it's math, maybe
Right,
it's
Mr.
whatever,
President.
giving them something. Yeah.
I really like the multi-generation reading and writing, and I wonder if we can have some seniors teach some kids some cursive, like just things like that may be lost, and it'll help get seniors out of their home, help kids have something to do after school, which is just so important. And increasing in tutoring would be amazing as well, because I know that's something that is, hard to get when you need it. The chill program is already in the works. It's something that's already existing, so it's more support for that. So I'm not too concerned with additional rules and regulations needed, obviously.
It would only be funded via the grant.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's,
But the-
yeah.
But the kid, URI, so if you have a student who's going to school for teaching, usually they go to Rick, but it could be a URI. This would be a good opportunity for them to get in front of kids to help them.
The grant was paid, for up to 50 and.
Right.
And
So
now,
we're not creating another position. We're not creating we're just giving kids an opportunity to learn outside of the school.
now, I will note that it does say grants should be used to build capacity, which can be sustained in the future. But
But it's not set in stone. It's a volunteer basically at this point.
right, yeah,
And it can be kept that way.
and I'm assuming that if they want us to sustain it in the future, the funding will continue to come,
I'd be fine with that.
Right. and
hopefully.
Mr. President, I have one other thought on that. I noticed that too when I was reading everything you sent us, and it didn't say it had to, like, they're not gonna come back and say, oh, you spent all this money on this program, you canceled that program, give us the money back. We
Right.
have this program, if it doesn't work, or not if it doesn't work, but if we can't continue to fund it, then it just goes away, and it's part of Richmond's history.
Right. You can't say you gotta try. See if it
Oh,
works.
yeah, I don't mind, I like the idea of kids having more tutoring time. I just don't know, the URI students that they don't go to school, most of them in the summer, so I don't know that they would want to be doing volunteer work or getting class credit in the
You
summer.
never know what kids need to do when they're in college.
So we can structure this in a way though that the
If
50,000
they
paid them.
Well, if they got paid,
Then
that would be fine,
they might be more energized.
if they got paid, yeah, absolutely.
And every college kid needs money.
Mr. President,
Yeah.
there's still, it seems like there's a lot of empty questions. There are questions here.
Oh, for sure, and that's
And-
because of the fact that we have to submit this by the end of the month, so we don't have a formal proposal yet to present to you. We, of course, will have a formal proposal to submit by the 30th, it's just that we can't get it in front of you.
Yeah, I just feel, Mr. President, for the town to get into the education business, that's like asking the school to get into municipal business through a grant. I'm sure Gina Picard would look at that and say, we're not doing that. We're plenty busy doing our own thing.
Well, it's, you know what, it's our community, it's our kids, and they need as many opportunities to learn that they can get their hands on. It might be something where a parent's working and during the summer, and they know that their child's gonna go to the Y and get a couple extra hours of learning. You know what, that might be the thing that they need so that they can go to work for those few hours or whatever it happens to be, so. I don't see a point of not allowing it. We may not even get it. We have to try. You have to put in, so I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second that.
And if we can have any further discussion, or we can just take a vote.
Mr. President, I'll just add something real quick. I understand there's concern with the unknown, and that can be scary, but I think that in this situation, the benefits substantially outweigh the risk.
I agree.
The idea of tutoring really does appeal to me because so many of the kids are behind.
They are.
So-
COVID did a lot of damage to a lot of children. And it's set a lot of kids back, so
Right.
I think it's
Even if
smart.
it's,
to go forward.
even if it only lasts 1 year, those kids will get a year's worth.
That's right, they certainly will.
And it is a 1-year program, grants run from September 2023 through September 2024.
Oh, so it doesn't even
will
work
be-
in the summer.
Well, it would be next summer. So this summer will be, the state's gonna make their decisions, we're gonna sign our contracts, whatever. And then it will start in September, run through the school year and then into next.
Why don't they work these grants through the school?
Because they're not eligible.
Point of order. Point of order. You need to address the president before anybody speaks.
Go ahead, Mike.
Again, the school is already geared for this. They have all the infrastructure there, whether it be teachers, support staff, special ed teachers and whatnot. I think we're just getting into a a realm that I don't really feel comfortable, the town getting into.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir. Name for the record, please.
Mark Reynolds.
Thank you, sir.
The presentation that was given by the folks from the state when they came to present this indicated this money was only for towns. Regional school district was not eligible. The towns had to take the money. They could use it and collaborate with the schools, but the town has to take the money. You were here for that presentation. I was here for that presentation. So the town needs to take this money. They can work with the school. They can work with the Y. People were complaining during the school budget that our kids are behind. You're not doing enough. Come on, what are you doing? And here the town has a chance to get $50,000 from the state to help kids catch up from COVID or do STEAM. The rec department, they ran a STEAM program. They could use some of this money if they want to run another STEAM program. It just seems foolish to me to turn away money that could benefit the kids in this district.
Thank you, sir. All right, there's a motion and a second. Entertain a vote.
Yes.
I say yes.
No.
Yes.
You, if you passes.
Second thing I have, I feel like we've talked a lot about doors, but
They're always open.
after the last bid we received and we did check out references, we weren't really happy with the references that company provided, so we did put this back out to bid. The bid we received was from Sole Source Construction, which is a pretty well-known company in Rhode Island. I'm sure you've all heard their advertisements. They are also on the state MPA. Their bid was $28,400. That is more than the last one. However, it's significantly less than the other price that we received the first time it went out, and that was $44,400. I did ask Public Works to speak to them. They've spoken to them. They were waiting still to get some written verbiage that clarified that everything we asked for is in there, and they haven't actually received it yet, but if you would approve this pending that.
Make a motion to approve pending that.
Second.
Any further discussion?
No.
So the doors, the door jams, all that's all
All
gonna be.
that, yeah, right.
Hinges, doorknobs, the whole works, right?
Crash
Box.
bar, the whole bit.
Does the door,
Box will work and
Yes.
everything.
does the door have to be painted?
Yes, and that was.
Okay,
supposed
that
to
was,
be
that was
part of the-
included? Okay,
That's great. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Aye,
Aye.
thank you.
Thank you.
Chief,
Sir. I know I'm not supposed to address.
that's okay, sir, you certainly.
I just
may.
want to thank Iva for exercising restraint.
Aye.
That's fair. Thank you.
It was hard.
So I had asked in the wake of legalization of marijuana up to certain amounts that the council consider public places and banning use of smoking devices and smoking marijuana in public. A lot of other communities have done it, about 7 that I'm certainly aware of. And the idea is, it's hard to think of these things without an example. 10-year-old youth with cystic fibrosis sitting at a ballpark, someone beside them smoking marijuana cigarette. What are the police to do when they're called there? Lower immune system on the cystic fibrosis youth and an irritant that can't be dealt with without asking somebody for it. Would you please put that out? I just think there are certain places where we congregate together. We can forego certain things. And the other concern is if you get to a public place and you're consuming an intoxicant, you leave at some point and most people drive. A lot of people don't commute. So we have concerns about people becoming impaired. Same reason we have no public drinking, no alcohol consumption in public. The Pomona Grange, I know, has no alcohol consumption during their fair. They plan to ban use of marijuana smoking and vapes as well. But I just thought this was something you should consider. It has been done in 7 other communities. And I just don't want to be caught needing something to enact a change in a public place and having to wait for us to consider it at that time. I thought maybe, it's getting warmer. Last day of school was today. This might be.
Mr.
Right, Mr.
President, Mr. President, I'd like to, I agree with the chief. I'd like to move to charge our solicitor with coming up with the verbiage for this new ordinance
It's
banning.
in front of you. Already been drafted.
Oh,
You know what? And I'm
Mr. President.
remiss in not saying thank you to Solicitor Ellsworth for drafting.
Thank you.
The chief asked me to draft it last December, and I don't think he liked it, so he said, let me think about it. And then he asked me again a few weeks ago, and I said, well, I already drafted it last December. And he looked at it again and he said, sure, let's go with it. So,
well,
yeah.
that's why I was making the motion, because I knew you didn't like the last one. So you're on board with this one?
It's 100%. Yeah, it's verbatim.
Yeah.
I just, I failed to see her email and I didn't follow up on any following conversation with her on it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to blame you for doing or not doing it.
No, I just wanted to have something prepared in the event it became a topic, so.
Mr. President, I'd like
Mr.
to.
Pre- I've been-
move to.
I've been eyeing at him like this.
She needs to speak also.
I was just gonna say, motion to authorize the town clerk to advertise for public hearing.
That's where it needs to go. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Real quick, thank you for answering my emails. I had questions about this and all of my concerns were addressed at the state level, and thank you for just reaching out and letting me know.
Absolutely. I appreciate your questions. and
Yeah.
answer them. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
Aye.
thank you. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Laura?
So, this year there were 2 quotes for insurance. Well, one was from the Rhode Island Interlocal Trust Pool and the other was from Woodman Sea Insurance. And while the town does not ordinarily, go out for more than 1 quote, it was determined that with the insurance industry trend being up almost 15%, that we go out for additional quotes this year to see if we could save any money. And we got our quotes back on June 16th, and after reviewing the information, I'm pleased to announce that Woodman Sea Insurance was the lower bid for the town. The cost of the property and liability and the lease IOD is quoted about the same as it is this year, and the workers' comp with Beacon is actually down about 20%. So I would like to thank both the trust and David for their diligent work, and it looks like we've got the best rates for the next year.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes.
motion to approve the insurance quote for fiscal year 23-24.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 And secondly, I have on the agenda an update on the 23-24 budget. As you know, the state budget was approved with a lower state aid for education for Richmond. I had the agenda item put on, but we don't fully understand why the formula lowered us as much as it did. So I am asking to table this until the next meeting where we'll give you more information and a resolution at that
Connor, do you have something to add to this?
I actually emailed Karen a bunch of information and I can send it to you as
time.
well.
Oh, I have that information.
Okay.
Thank you. And it helped us greatly. However, some of the numbers that the state is working with might be contrary to what Charahoe believes. And then we have to then look at those numbers in relation to the Charahoe Act, because one is on a state level and one is on the Charahoe Act level. So we just didn't have enough time for discussion to present it tonight. But thank you
They say
very much.
80 kids less in Richmond. So email me and I can get you more information.
I have, thank you. I have all the, yep. They actually presented something on the RIDE website this week as well.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to move this
You
to the
wanna-
next. What, the
We'll
next
just
meeting
keep
is
it on,
enough?
yeah, we'll just keep it on the agenda until we can resolve it.
Okay.
You want a motion to
Move to the next
Move to the
meeting.
next meeting? Then it's officially on there at the next meeting, but if you're not ready.
We only have one July meeting.
Put it on when you're ready, right?
That's fine.
All right.
Yeah, we don't actually need a motion, it was just a
Okay,
discussion
got it.
update.
All right, thank you. Sean?
Evening, Mr. Vice President, evening, councilors.
Evening.
So I have two things to go over with you tonight. Firstly, at this time, I'd like to ask the council to schedule a public hearing for review of amendments to the town's aquifer protection overlay district regulations. I would requesting a public hearing date for July the 18th at 5 p.m. And in advance of that meeting, we'll ensure that the council has all the information that they need to feel comfortable with the packet that's going to be presented. It's been a big lift. We've been working on this for over a year, and I think having an earlier public hearing, I think is warranted. I think in this particular case, so I would ask that you schedule that for July the 18th.
Mr. President.
Yep.
Motion to authorize the town clerk to advertise a public hearing on July 18th at 5 p.m.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Okay.
Okay. If we're not going to proceed with a public hearing on this, we are effectively shelving these amendments from any further review. Just so I'm hearing everyone correctly on this.
So you don't want to go forward with the protection of our water system? Am I getting that same vibe here?
Mr. President,
Yeah,
we want to hear from the public what they have to say too about this. So if we put it on for public hearing, we can hear from everybody how they feel about the Aquifer Protection Overlay District. That's really all this is just to make sure that
public hearing.
voices are heard.
You don't want the public to be able
Because
to,
the motion on the floor
that's all
was
it is, it's a
the
public hearing.
public hearing, not on the amendment itself.
Actually, we already voted on this, so I move it. This discussion is over. Discussion was.
It's fine, but I just want to tell you,
Karen?
Can I ask for
we have
clarification?
landowners in this town that are buying upon regulations in order for them to make sizable investments in their property. I just want to be very clear with you about that.
The planning board spent a great deal of time after their workshop with you, working on the language of the ordinance with the preserve to make sure that it didn't have any harmful impact on the preserve, and they reached an agreement with the preserve. This is something that the planning board has been working on for more than a year, and as Sean said, there are a number of property owners in town who are eagerly waiting the enactment of these ordinances amendments, because it's going to make it easier for them to develop their property. It would be really helpful if you could explain to us why you don't want to go forward with the ordinance, if there's a particular problem with any parts of the amendments, or whether it's something else.
Okay, well, I went through, actually, I did this more than once, but I went through it again with the ones that came out with the minutes of this one. And I had the map printed for myself, a big one in color. And I'm worried that there are so many places that I'm afraid there will be no development in areas that are supposed to be having development allowed. And even in addition to that, those who do try to do development, they'll be priced out of the market because the requirements seem to be excessive in some areas.
I just want to be really, really clear about what the objective of this process was all about from all along. There are two objectives when we went through this review. Firstly and foremost, we want to ensure that our groundwater, our drinking supply, we don't have sewers, we have very limited water service in this town, right, is protected. That we have high quality and that we have high supply. That's number one, right? Number two, we also want to introduce uses into our business zones that are not allowed today under today's current regulations and today's current use code categories. So we took a step back and we said, how can we make this work? How can we introduce new uses and potential growth into the areas that we want to see it happen without compromising our water quality and our water quantity? And this package of documents that have been prepared for you is intended to do those two things. So if we don't proceed, I just want you all to know, if we don't proceed, it's status quo, right? It's status quo. And I don't know what the future is going to mean with the status quo, right? So
the status quo basically means it stunts economic development because there's developers who need those changes so that they can grow and develop in our town and invest in our town.
So my question is that you've talked to these other big companies in the town and they say.
many landowners in this town.
They're okay with it?
There are many landowners in this town that are acutely aware of these drafts.
Right.
They're online, they've been disseminated.
So my concern that they would just go away and they would just do nothing, leave it as it is if we pass this.
Well, I mean, there's potential for that too, but I mean, that's not the message.
That
We
right?
have had conversations with them. They have participated in the board meetings in which these amendments were discussed.
So they're on board with it.
Yes, they are in favor of it and they are waiting for it to be enacted so that they can develop.
So two people who want economic development are going to crush this by not letting it go forward. That's basically what you're doing by not allowing it to go to a public hearing.
I didn't
Mr.
know until
President, Are
tonight.
you putting words in my mouth?
I didn't know until tonight that.
You answered,
I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm stating what I
I don't
just
want
heard.
people the perception that you're talking.
We're not going there.
Listen, we talk a lot about economic development, and this is going to segue into the next thing that I want to talk about with you, but we talk a lot about economic development. I think there's a lot of people in this town. I think they're very, very supportive of economic growth in this town. And, you know, we have to go about looking at how to do that in a lot of different ways. And there's always going to be disagreements along the way to get to yes. And I understand that as well as anyone. Our planning board understands that, the zoning board understands that, a lot of people understand that. But what's key to that, what's key to all of this is that, you know, we want to be proactive and we want to try to position ourselves in the best way possible to capitalize on the market demands when those demands are high. Right? And I'm fairly confident, I'd say I'm not more than fairly confident, I'm very confident, you know, that by going forward with these regulations, we are positioning ourselves to take advantage of those market demands when those markets.
Mr. President, can I now speak for myself? Thank you.
Yeah, you can speak.
Thank you. I've talked to large landowners and they are not for this. I've gone back and looked at case law dating back to 1928 and throughout the whole country when anybody can Google aquifer overlay, and the best use of an aquifer overlay is to stifle or slow economic development in those areas where they claim they want to protect their water. And like I said, the internet is a beautiful thing. You can just Google that and you can look at it. And like I said, I've talked to a couple of the major landowners in town that fall into that aquifer overlay district. And like I've stated before, industrial and commercial is not like it was 50 and 60 years ago. You have EPA regulations that will protect the water. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be duplicating what the state and the federal government is already dictating to us what can be done and what can be done and what can't be done.
Mike, with all sincerity, Mike, Wyoming, as we know it, sits on top of an aquifer. You know, it's a business zone. We want to see businesses thrive in that area and in other areas like Shannon. and Kenyon, those all sit in aquifer areas. You know, these, again, I'll repeat it again. These ordinances, the way that they were written, was intended to prescribe standards to protect the aquifer, to allow new uses to go in where they aren't permitted to go. I hope you all understand that.
This is not a new ordinance. We already have an aquifer protection overlay district. The one that we're proposing is less restrictive than the one we have now. It's less restrictive.
I'm gonna take my vote back. And
Thank
put it
you.
up open hearing. Public hearing.
Thank you.
Motion to reconsider?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think both failing has to be considered.
Well, we're a tie. So how does that work?
There's no prevailing.
If you want economic development, then we need these.
Helen has to make a motion to reconsider the vote because she voted against.
Okay, I make a motion to reconsider the vote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Do I need a motion for that?
Yeah, now you need a motion to
Um,
send it to public hearing.
Motion to authorize town clerk to advertise a public hearing for July 18th at 5 PM.
Second. Discussion.
Is it possible to get some of these big landowners to come to the public hearing to say they're in favor of it?
Mr. President, I would love that.
They've
That's
been
why I
paying
want to put it on public hearings. That way we can hear from the public, hear from the business owners, hear from the people.
They're paying attention. They're watching right now.
Okay.
That's the point, is that
They are
they are
watching right
watching,
now,
they're
and so-
watching with like bated breath.
They're literally watching. They're literally watching. Yes.
Okay, well, I'd like to wave hello.
Yeah.
Thank you for reconsidering.
There's a motion
It's
and a
important to
second.
bring it to public hearing.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Don't see
The
this.
second item I would like to talk about dovetails well to a degree when we talk about Wyoming, and we talk about the aquifer protection regulations and so on and so forth. Rhode Island Housing has allocated $4 million towards municipal technical assistance. It's a new program, but the intent of that program is to look at regulatory reform and infrastructural capacity study to promote affordable housing for the cities and towns out there that are looking to find the best areas in town to support their affordable housing needs. Because it's a technical assistance program, the money's already set aside, it's already been appropriated. I would like us as a town to participate in that program because what that will allow the town to do is to have an outside set of eyes, look at our regulations, look at our infrastructural capacity, the existing infrastructural capacity, and see what impediments we see towards affordable housing in its various forms. And affordable housing means it includes a lot of different products of housing. You have senior housing, you have multifamily housing, you have mixed use development with the commercial emphasis included with the affordable units. And we know just based on how we programmed our comp plan, we know that our service corridor, our main business center of the town sits between here and Route 3 going into Hope Valley. And what I'm hoping that that you as a council will greenlight tonight is for myself and the town to apply for municipal technical assistance through Rhode Island Housing so that we can start studying the infrastructure, the limits of our existing infrastructure as it relates to the ability to produce affordable housing along the 138 corridor between here and Route 3. I also, if it's possible, I really want to start looking at the options of like, what does our existing capacity give us versus what that capacity could be with the S word, right? Talking about public sewers. And I think that's something that I think we probably need to really start thinking about and really start discussing when it comes to when we start talking about infrastructure, long-term investment. So my hope is that with this program, we'll get an outside consultant to look at this corridor between where we're standing right now on 138 all the way into Route 3 into Hope Valley. Look at the conditions of our sidewalks, where we have them, our roadways, our water system, and obviously the quality of our soils, because at the end of the day, the amount of intensity and activity is all based on how good the quality of your soil is to support it, since everything's on septic. I think we need to start maybe looking a little bit more broadly on what our options are long-term. It's a study. We're not committing ourselves to anything one way or the other upon the completion of that study. But it will come with some recommendations about how to find, I think, the right range of housing choice for this town in combination with the economic growth that we're hopefully going to be anticipating. We talked a lot about economic growth. We need a workforce to support that growth. And I think the two go hand in hand. I also do want to mention too, if you will invite him to the dais, our chair of our Affordable Housing Committee, Bruce Owen, is here tonight to support this effort. The Housing Committee, the Affordable Housing Committee discussed it last night, is in very much support of this type of program. And I hope you'll entertain his comments as well. So,
Absolutely.
that's all I had.
Bruce Dolian, Richmond resident. I won't repeat what Sean said. He did a very good job. I hate the use of the expression slam dunk because it oversimplifies everything. This is a slam dunk, if you will. The state of Rhode Island, Richmond is in critical need of affordable. We are so far, but we're underwater. We have a goal of 10%. We're not even halfway. We're rising very slow. And I'm not putting any blame on anyone. We need all the help we can get. We've been turned down for things, basically, because we don't have infrastructure. They want water. Sometimes they want sewers. They don't want to give us money to build out wherever. Sean just outlined what you already know. Big deal from Wyoming down to here, even into Hope Valley to some extent, even though that's a different town. That's where things can happen. It's a different world, and I'm not trying to be cynical. The quick example, building a big shed, got all the work done, went for the permit today, engineer stamped and everything. He says, you can't build it. You have to have a 42-inch frost wall. Where did that come from? We move on with knowledge and technology. You can't sit still for a second today. You know that better than I do. When we move forward with some of the ideas that Sean has got, we need expertise to evaluate everything we're doing, to bring all of this complicated stuff together. Then to further go after more money. We have, if I understand this, Sean, a free check from Rhode Island Housing for significant money when we have a plan to bring in some experts to say, great, not so good, move it forward, wait a minute, back, whatever. We don't have to pay for that study. This to me is a slam dunk. There's no restrictions. They're not going to say, you signed on, you know what I'm saying? They're not going to pull back and say, well, you guys screwed up. We got you. That's not going to happen. Can't. This is good forward movement for study money in a world that's getting so complex. URI is having a well workshop. I'm going to go and find out which role we might well. We are in a complicated time. We need expertise to oversee some of our projects, not to tell us what to do, but just to advise us. So I heartily, we had a great discussion last night on this. All of the members of the affordable housing are strongly in support of this. So I implore you to give it serious thought and to allow us to take advantage of this. I thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, Motion to authorize Sean to participate in the Rhode Island Housing Municipal Technical Assistance Program.
I'll second that.
Um,
Discussion.
Can I make a quick statement?
Sure.
Thank you for speaking, Bruce. I love to hear when a committee makes an agreement, how many people on the committee agreed. Even if you came up here and said it was 5-1, 4-2, I love to know how many people on the group support what you're saying when you come here on behalf of that group. So thank you.
100% support.
No other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Mr. President.
Yep.
The one caveat for all of that is if we end up putting in a sewer system, then the users of the sewer system should pay for it. It should not be added to the town budget.
Talk about-
Too soon.
It's way too soon. There-
I know, but I
Can't-
just wanted
can't
to be
talk
clear
about it.
about that.
Can't talk about it. Can't even discuss it.
Okay.
Rec director, she's still sleeping. You're waiting. Well, thank you.
Hi. So we've had a lot of last minute registrations for camp, so we are requesting to hire 2 more counselors, Jonathan Palmer and Alexis Dugan.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
How many kids signed up last year at this time compared to this year at this time?
We had 80 last year and we're at 91 right now.
At 91, and the amount of counselors you had last year up to this point are exactly the same as last year?
No, we had 10 counselors last year. We have 12 this year.
Yeah.
With these 2, it would be 12.
With these 2, it would be 12.
Yep.
Okay. And the policy, or do we have not a policy? Is it first, Richmond residents have first dibs at,
We've never had a cap on how many kids can come. It's just whoever signs up. We have.
counselors?
Oh,
Counselors that we,
this year we started by hiring just Richmond residents and then we needed more. So at this point, I believe I hired everybody who applied to be a counselor.
okay, so we didn't get enough Richmond residents applying,
No,
so you had to go outside.
Yeah.
But they're kids you've worked with before? Have you ever worked with?
3 of them, yes.
Yeah, and some of these councils, they were actually camp
Yes.
members themselves at
Yeah.
one time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice that they wanted, be counselors now. That's nice.
I was
More
a
than
camper.
like camp.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Rooted within. Awesome. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. All right, appointments and resignations, notice of non-renewal, Louise Dinsmore from zoning board of review, we sent a letter saying thank you for your service. Request of Justin Price for a reappointment as second alternate to the zoning board of review with term expiring July 31st, 2024.
Mr. President, so moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
No, I'm just gonna state, just so my vote's clear, is this person was at the bottom of my ranked choice voting list, so I'll be voting no accordingly. Just now that I have the opportunity to vote.
All in favor?
No.
Aye.
Aye.
Licenses, approval of victualling license, application for Filippo's Twisted Pizza and Bistro, located at 1203 Main Street.
Mr. President, move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Is everything
Subject to, Rhode Island Department of Health approval, building and zoning inspection approval. Nothing.
motion include all that?
Motion includes all that?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Approval of 1-year indoor entertainment license. Filippo's Twisted Pizza and Bistro, Richmond Live Music,
Mr. President, move to approve.
Second.
and everything's
It says subject to fire.
subject to
Yeah.
fire, building, zoning
Right.
inspection.
Mhm.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Unfinished business, discussion and consideration of 2-year contract with Constellation Power Options for supplying electricity to the town. Laura.
So this is a continuation of the discussion of the last meeting. There is a representative on if we need, but the rate today is a little higher than it was 2 weeks ago. The 1-year rate is at 0.1216, and the 2-year contract is 0.1211.
1, 2, I didn't hear the last one.
18. So it's basically 12 cents. A little higher than it was.
2 weeks
Move
ago.
to, move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor? Ellen?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
For the 2-year contract.
2-year contract.
Thank you, and thank you, Meg, for being and waiting.
Discussion and consideration of policy for appointments and reappointments on boards and commissions. Charles, do you have anything else that you need to add to this?
I don't have anything to add. I think I said everything I needed to say in the memo. This policy draft is a result of a discussion between me, the town administrator, and the town.
My only concern is the part of here one. Making an appointment subject to a resignation. I still think that someone needs to resign from a position before they can be considered for the same position. I know that it's how you worded it, how you have it in here. I'm still stuck on the point of sink or swim, jump in the pond or not, but don't, I still feel that you're eating your cake and you're having it too. No, if you want to be in a full position, resign. Everyone else has done in the past, and I don't see any need to make it go any other way.
That's a policy decision for you guys to make.
Yeah, Mr. President, make a quick comment. I think if somebody, especially a first or a second alternate, if they're already there as a first and second alternate, we've already approved them. They already, especially the zoning, have gone through educational classes.
Yep.
That what we did is we just ended up squandering all that time that money that person already took. So I feel that if the person is a first or a second alternate, they should just actually be moved up. So first alternate, when there's an opening for the full board, I think that first alternate should automatically be
But you have to make the appointment. It can't happen automatically. You have to make the appointment to the.
And that kind of, it proves my point that there shouldn't be a just because. There should never be just because. If someone wants to move up, doesn't matter who they are, and this all stems from Ms. Dinsmore's position on the zoning board. It's irrelevant to that person. It is a policy where if you are going to run for another position, you need to resign from the position that you're in and then apply to the new position. And if you're qualified, great, then you get on and there shouldn't be an issue. But there shouldn't be a reason for us to change our entire policy because someone didn't like the way that our policy runs. We shouldn't have to assimilate to somebody else's desires. They need to conform to the policy of the way that the town works. I think it's fair, especially if there's 4 or 5 other people who are going for that position. If they're in it and they want to move up, but there's another qualified or a better qualified person for that position, maybe they should have the opportunity to be there. And that's how I see it. I think it needs to be changed.
Mr. President.
Yep.
If I could find a written rule where it was the town's policy, I would wholeheartedly agree with you. But I think part of the concern was that it wasn't a policy. So it left some people interpreting it one way and another person interpreting another. So
Yep.
By doing this, I don't feel like we're changing policy, we're creating it. And I don't think that there's a need to resign before they're reappointed because as we saw last time, if we don't want the person in the position, they're not going to be in the position anyway. So it just seems like unnecessary. I have other thoughts on other things, but I'll just address that one for now.
I also went through this proposal, and I appreciate the work that you did on you and Karen and Erin. So, but number one, I do not think that reappointments of incumbent members should be automatic. In most cases, they will be reappointed by the town council. but there are situations where a person may not be reappointed. Therefore, I believe we should deal with incumbent reappointments before voting on new members for boards and commissions. 2, a person who has a position as an alternate who wishes to have a full position should be considered before new applicants. The alternate has already been through training. They can submit a conditional resignation from the alternate position at the same time that the application for the full position is considered. 3, new applicants must attend either in person or remotely, or submit a written statement to the town council meeting at the time their appointment will be considered. We recently had someone who came to a meeting that wanted to be appointed, and our meeting was canceled because there were too many people here. And when it was rescheduled 2 days later, the person was not able to make it that night. So I think we should have it in our policy that they could give a written statement if they can't be here in person. And 4, the criteria for appointment should include residency in Richmond except for the zoning board. I don't have any problem with the ranked voting, and that is a change of our policy. We never did that before.
Residency is already the ordinances. That's
Okay.
covered by the ordinances.
Okay, so I wasn't in this policy, so I.
Right, because it's already covered by the respective ordinances
All right.
for the boards and commissions.
Okay.
Can I just, real quick, there are some positions where you don't need to be a resident. I think the business owner liaison to the EDC and also maybe the architect, if you know an architect. I just
No,
enjoyed.
it was a committee for architects.
No, not a committee for architect, but a board member who has to be, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So there's a handful that you don't have to require, but the majority of them you do, just
Correct.
to clarify.
And Mr. President, I say my case again, that I believe that the first, second alternate should just automatically be given first dibs at the open position. Especially, like I said, on the zoning board, because they have gone through training and whatnot. And they could have already been on the board long enough as the first alternate. When a member is absent, that first alternate jumps up and sits in the seat, and they actually vote. And it could be on legal matters and whatnot that they are privy to. Whereas if we don't appoint this person and we get somebody outside, this person has already dealt with some of these legal matters. So again, that other person is going to be behind the 8 ball. And that person that's already been sitting there, say hypothetically, for a year, that's been exposed to all this, I think it would just better, suit the town and better the town in the long run if we keep that person on.
That's not stated here in this draft, is it, Karen? What Mike just said.
No,
I mean, I'm amicable to find having somebody be able to state, put in a resignation with their application. I'm amenable to that. It's fine. But I don't think there should be a free slide up.
Right. Just like.
I'll accept this as it's printed here. And that's fine. Does this have to go to public hearing?
no, it does not.
I have a few statements that haven't been addressed, though, Mr. President. Thank you. Ranked choice voting, I found just one final issue. Once the appointments were determined, we then had to still vote to appoint that person, which put us in a position where that person we were voting for wasn't necessarily the person we wanted. But procedurally, we had to do it, even because that's what the rules told us to do. So I just think that maybe that could create unnecessary controversy. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but that's fine. Just wanted to state it. Another, also a question I had about ranked choice voting is it said that council may use ranked choice voting. So in theory, we could not, and I would want to clarify whose decision that is and if it would be on the sole discretion of the president or, vice president.
I wasn't a fan of ranked choice voting. I think each person, just like each law or anything that's getting voted on, it's an up or down.
And
one after another, one up, one down. Like none of that ranked.
I'm
choice
glad
stuff.
we tried it because I'm open to trying new things, but maybe we could go back to like the way we nominated for presidency, go to Robert's rules and go that procedure.
Right.
But I had a couple other things I just want to get out. When this is all said and done and all our discussions are completed, where will this document be found so that the public's aware of it? I'd like to suggest we put it behind the town council rules and procedures, like as an amendment, but I wasn't sure where it was gonna be. So I wanted to clarify that. And my last thought here is we could add the thank you letter language to paragraph 9. It's in paragraph 8, so just being a little nitpicky, please put it in 9 too.
So if we consider incumbents and new people as all equal up and down, I think the two Karens and Erin were right that that is going to make the incumbents feel not valued. So I think we need to deal with the incumbents before we go dealing with new people.
I feel the same way too. For sure.
If I.
Oh, I mean, go ahead.
So we talked at length at this. I don't agree that a board member would need to resign. I see it as a vacancy is created regardless of if they're moving up, if they're resigning, if they're moving out of town. It's a vacancy that the council will still have to fill. So if we're going and considering incumbents first, the concern is certainly the agenda would be noticed properly that way. But that vacancy of the person that's moving up couldn't be acted upon until another properly noticed agenda when the vacancy occurred. So I think that was the open meetings concern that Karen had. But if we go along the lines of what suggests where their incumbents are considered first before new applicants, and so they're acted upon accordingly, I don't believe that there'll be any violation as long as the vacancy of the incumbent is not acted upon until a properly noticed agenda. I had concern that there was some missing notice language depending on how that's interpreted. But I think that it could be created. I also, board members that, just my opinion, is number 8 and number 9, whether they resign or they choose not to be reappointed, it's a vacancy. And so in my opinion, I treat them the same, and that's why, but there's no notice requirement. And that's why I think Karen feels strongly that the council accept a resignation. This is it just being filed and creating the vacancy. I see it as something that would be a hindrance to, if we had such in the summer, we had a vacancy last week. It didn't make this agenda, we wouldn't act upon it till July 18th, and zoning had to meet then 14th. So if it could be noticed as suggested versus a formal resignation, I mean, that's just my full take on that. But I think if you ranked the incumbent first and it was noticed, and those persons, they would also have to come to the meeting, because renewals on the regular do not come. Now, there's not many situations where we would find that they're competing for a spot here in Richmond, so we don't want them to always come. But there needs to be some sort of provision, I guess, that if they're competing against somebody else, that they would come and put in a letter or a statement, just like any new applicant. So those are just kind of my concerns about the policy and implementing it.
I just want to stress that this is a really new problem. Like, for many years, we haven't had enough volunteers to fill all of the spaces.
Yep.
So I'm not sure how long that this overabundance of volunteers is going to last. So maybe it's, maybe we shouldn't be overthinking this.
Yeah. Agreed.
I suggested that I wasn't really for ranked choice voting. I believe you did as well, Mr. President. Can I see who else would be willing to take that out?
I'm willing to take
You're willing to take it out?
Yep.
So, okay, so do we have a motion?
Not yet.
Not yet. Also, my question is, where will this be found? Wasn't answered.
The town clerk keeps a file of official policy resolutions enacted by the council, and that's where it would be. If you want, you can adopt it as an addendum to the town council rules of procedure.
I could also post it on the town council page.
As well as the board and commission's main page where all the applicants are found.
Yeah, where it's posted on the website is separate, I think, separate question from Sam's question, which was more of a formal question, like what is it part of? It's part of the collection of policy resolutions that the town clerk keeps. but you could make it an addendum to the rules of procedure if you want.
All right.
So we're agreeing to take out the ranked voting.
Right.
We're agreeing that we'll deal with incumbents first. And then if someone is an alternate who wants to move up to a full position, that they can have their resignation ready and be considered for the position at the same time. Okay.
So I'll put a motion to approve policy without ranked choice voting. And with the other amendments.
See another draft.
You want me to go draft? Go for it.
Yeah, because this
Sounds
is
good.
kind of complicated and I want to make sure that what I give you is exactly what you want.
Yep.
And not something else that I thought I heard you say. So it would be better if I could rewrite this to reflect what you all just agreed to. That's okay.
That would be great.
You'll have it for the next agenda.
Perfect.
Do we need a motion to ask you to do that?
Yeah, you can.
So move.
I think you already did.
Second, yeah.
Aye.
All in favor? Aye,
Aye.
Hi.
thank you. The next. New business discussion consideration of 23-24 resolution. And I got a note that we're gonna postpone that till the next meeting. Right?
Yes, it was basically on the levy and collection of taxes, and we still have time to finalize that resolution.
So motion to move it to the next meeting.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Hi.
All right, Mr. President, motion to file the communications, petitions, proclamations, resolutions.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Mr. President,
Aye.
motion to adjourn. Oh, aye. You're not good.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Done. Good.